I thought you were going to say, how about a theme tune remix with us playing on bellies over
That now might be quite a fun thing to add in. Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller. And Gary Lineker said he's the greatest of all time by a long way. A genuine phenomenon. Zico, the best of the lot, no question. In my generation, my era, he was simply the best. I saw him do things that God himself would doubt were possible. He could always conjure up a wonderful piece of magic, a genius. Lionel Messi, if anyone inspired me, it was undoubtedly him. All these people were talking about the sadly departed Diego Maradona, but they could just as easily have been talking about my wonderful co-host, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm very good, Rich. How are you today?
I'm good, yeah. I thought the last week's intro was a bit harsh on you, so I thought I'd sort of butter up your ego today to start things off.
You thought you just nagged me from the off? Is that what you thought, Rich?
That's what happened last time, I think.
Well, this is a little bit passive-aggressive, you know.
What? I'm saying that you're as wonderful as Diego Maradona.
Okay.
Who, you know, there's an argument between him and Pelé, but that's a pretty short conversation in terms of the best ever.
I mean, I often get lumps kicked out of me while I do my excellent, so there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, dear. Well, you know, back to the negging next week. This is...
Oh, excellent. I'm used to
that. Tertiary or tangential praise is obviously not the way to go. But I believe, Luke, you've got something for us from the network.
I do. It's another top-notch piece of programming from the folks at Amazon Prime. It's out now, and it's Caledonians and Cars Getting Coffee. That's right, folks. Grab your Bonnie Tam O'Shanta, locate your kilt and trousers as Chief Wednesday Scottish stalwart Liam Palmer meets up with fellow Wednesday Scottish teammates past and present for a wee dram of espresso and the accompanying Tunnet's caramel wafer. Join north of the border stars such as Air Alstar, Burton O'Brien, Paul Heffernan and Mark Reynolds as they accompany Wednesday's fave wee ball bag of a Highlander in such illustrious Scottish vehicles such as the Hillman Imp for a tasty hot drink and even tastier banter. Subtitles provided on Palm's thick brogue by the man who understands him the most, the second most Scottish member of the Wednesday squad, Jordan Rhodes. It's Caledonians in Cars Getting Coffee. Watch it now.
Oh, superb. The bit where Liam Palmer was during one conversation, and he was obviously trying out a prior bit that he'd organised. But when he's like, "What's the deal with me playing all of these positions?" And very funny stuff. Probably.
Very good. Very good.
Oh well, I think without further hanging around.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
There's been some Wednesday news, and obviously we had a game midweek. It was new to me. I think there's been some discussion about how new it was generally, but it was new to me seeing the reasons behind the 12-point deduction being reduced into a 6-point deduction. Was that new to you as well, Luke?
It probably was, but I don't think I paid enough attention. You kind of brought this surprise to the podcast, and I was like, sure, we can talk about it. If you know a lot more about that than I do, sir. You go on, and I'll chip in with some mild, pithy opinion.
Well, I suppose it maybe answers, or maybe asks as many questions as it answers, because effectively it came down to the panel feeling that it was just too much of a charge the first time round. I mean, I think when the points deduction was imposed, we talked about the fact that it's the largest points deduction that had ever been put on somebody for a financial fair play breach. So they've sort of addressed that fact in isolation from the training ground sale, where that happened or when that happened. From the committee's point of view, that was a separate financial year and had nothing to do with the penalty. So potentially what that means, seeing as Derby got away with selling the ground and their valuation of it, and we broadly are in the same ballpark as them, potentially it means that we do reap the reward of the training ground sale. It's just unfortunately a year too late for us, which is why the penalty stand. So it's intriguing. It also probably opens up the road to litigation, because we could have taken a 6-point deduction last season. The reason we weren't given a 12-point deduction last season was we wouldn't have had time to appeal before the season started again. But if they decided on 6 points in the first place, we could have taken that deduction and been into this season kind of scot-free, effectively. So again, that kind of the EFL wanting to go above and beyond to penalise us has kind of, played in our favour slightly, and played against them when it's been exposed to outside opinion. But yeah, just an interesting thing to sort of note. We're still waiting to see what the financial picture is. I don't think we've had the accounts yet for this year, so just another thing to look at. But we may well be in a period where for the next year or two, that ground sale has the desired effect of kind of adding some buoyancy to the accounts figures. The other thing that I just noted, Luke, was Barry Bannon has had an excellent 24 to 48 hours on Instagram. From my perspective, anyway. Tom Lees wishing him a happy 30th birthday and calling him Lee's dog, which is just excellent, because you don't look at Tom Lees and think Lee's dog would be his nickname, so that's a treat. And then celebrating his lovely girlfriend's birthday by calling her a MILF online. What an absolute treat. Would you have gone with Lee's dog? I know we don't know much about Tom Lees, but from the outside looking in, Tomo, I think I'd go for.
I don't know what I'd go for. I think I'd call him Thomas.
Thomas,
just keep it remarkably formal with him. I think that's what I'd do.
Mr. Lees. Thomas James Lees.
I also like Thomas Jane. I also like calling him Thomas Jane as well, because that makes him sound like he's the TJ. TJ is good.
TJ could work.
TJ Maxx, we could go on.
I like that for him. TJ Maxx is excellent.
Or TJ Less. You could joke with him when he's doing that shit.
It's very close to Lee's as well. That's right.
It is. TJ Less. I think that's our nickname for him on the podcast. TJ Less or TJ Maxx. We'll vary between the two depending on which.
That's how we'll assess his performances from now on. We won't give him a rating out of 10. It will be, was he TJ Less or was he TJ Maxx?
Was he TJ Less? Was he TJ Least? Was he TJ Maxx with 1 X? Or was he TJ Maxx with 2 X's?
Excellent.
TJ Midi.
And obviously the biggest sort of we deal with it in news, but it was a football match. So we had the game with Swansea midweek. What did you? What we both shared the very odd experience of the complete lack of any noise from the ground whatsoever. So we just had the commentary, which felt too intimate, and I don't know. I think if I was like an ASMR person, I might have enjoyed the fact that I could hear like individual nostril hairs of the commentators as they contemplated their comments. But it was too much for me. It felt like somebody was like whispering in my ear, and I did not want them to be there.
I think I heard someone masticating a banana at some point as well.
Yeah, that's it. It
sounded like there were other people in the closet with them. Like I thought I heard some coughs that were subdued from a distance. I'm like, well, that's not what the main people did. Did we also ever find out who the commentators were? Because we were talking about this. We had
I think I figured out that it was Lee Hendry by the end, by like playing almost secret footballer-esque. Guess who?
Guess who? Know? Yes. Yeah.
But I don't know for certain. But we outside of the weirdness, we had Rhodes starting the game, sort of top on his own, but also almost like a 3 with Reach and Patterson at times. It was sort of went back and forth between those two options. I mean, Swansea a good side going well. What did you sort of make of the game as it sort of ran along?
I think I think for a while looking at it, like the first half, it wasn't particularly scintillating, but I think I slowly kind of came into when did we score? What point was it in the first half we scored?
The 27th minute is when we scored.
It was probably around then that I think, we scored, and then I think a few minutes kind of died down, and then I think it was kind of the realization for a lot of the first half that we were playing some good stuff. We seemed to really work it through the middle, which was good because we had, 5 members. We had 5 midfielders effectively. It's a 4-5-1, wasn't it, effectively?
Yeah.
And, this rather strange kind of thing of Callum Patterson. We see him as no position for old Pato. We've never signed him with a view to. Well, we think we signed him with a view of being a striker, and then there was the whole thing about Pulis coming out and saying he's never been a striker, or from what he sees.
Yeah,
which I found really upsetting for him to do that so early. He's got enough in his locker. He's got enough experience to know what he's doing, but I didn't like someone being. I'm like, you've come in for like 5 minutes. You've been here like 5 minutes. Like, I highly doubt you've spent much time watching,
He seems to have this vision of him. I'm trying to think who a good analog for him would be, but, effectively kind of a Lampard type. Maybe Gerrard, but not as full a game as Gerrard. But that kind of Lampard thing of arriving late in the box and making your presence felt. Lampard scored a lot of goals from the edge of the box, but he also got a good amount of headers, sort of adding another body into the mix at times. And that seems to be what Pulis sees for Patterson, which is interesting. I thought he stood out midweek. I thought he had a really good game, and
I thought he was great as well.
Yeah. So it's hard to know what to make of him, really, because I sort of agree. It's a strange thing to come in and immediately say that a player that's been playing a position probably most of his professional career now, you don't really see him in that role, and suggest something else for him. I do think that's an odd thing to do coming in the door.
He's obviously weirdly, and I'll try and say this in a way, and maybe I'll explain it afterwards because it might sound a bit different. It might sound a bit awkward. He's kind of talismanic for who we are right now. Which maybe you would say, well, talisman would mean someone who's, fantastic and, makes everything work. But I think he's more of a talisman just for he feels like in the player, the identity of this Wednesday team right now.
Yes.
He's someone very dogged. He's very perseverant. I think if we could have, it felt a bit interesting with Stoke, today, and seeing Captain Fox Morgan back against us. I'll come on to that later, but it felt a little bit like it sometimes thinking during the bad times, it's kind of like we need at least 3 or 4 more of you on the pitch. They could literally just be clones, but we could probably have 3 Pattersons on the pitch, really. And
if everyone had that kind of good, honest hard work that's built into his game.
Exactly. So he's got that industry. He's a degree of spryness, a degree of mobility. He's big. He's got a lot of strength to him. He's certainly not a bad player. He has some skills to himself as well. So I think he's been. I mean, he's a utility man. I think he's gonna be pretty decent, or give a fairly decent account of himself wherever we ask him to play on the pitch. I sometimes wonder a little bit about, and we can kind of get onto this today, maybe it's a little bit of foreshadowing, but sometimes does that kind of do against a player to say, hey, I can play anywhere you want me to, but effectively you end up playing in positions that aren't theoretically your main position. So then it's almost a bit like doing yourself a disservice, because, hey, you could bring someone in to naturally play that position, and they do a really good job, and it's like, they're designed and conditioned to play that position every week.
Yeah.
Right? That could well be a strength and could well be a weakness. I mean, I like him. I don't quite get it, but I still think it works to a certain degree, right?
I wonder if he can bring a similar. I don't think he's quite the athlete that Hutchinson was, but I wonder if he can bring a similar kind of poppy like enthusiasm to his area of the pitch. I sort of get that from him. I think he's always, you can see why he gets moved around, because he hasn't actually looked out of place anywhere, I don't think. He doesn't look natural anywhere either that I've seen. But as you say, he's got a physicality to him. He's got some level of skill, and the mixture of strength and skill means that he can hold onto a ball. He generally plays reasonably good passes, although today a couple of times I thought his passing let him down at times. But you can kind of see why he's been moved around. But I also I just got this little hint of, hearing Pulis talk about him. I just wondered if, bringing that kind of because at times Hutch would bowl people over in his team and against it and in the opposition, just by kind of the way he approached everything with such a kind of full-throated passion. And I don't think Patterson naturally has that sort of level of passion, but I do think he brings a similar kind of presence. And I can kind of see what Pulis is on about. Whether it will happen in time for us, I just don't know. Because we're not at this point in time, we're not building. We've not managed to build a sustainable source of attack. And I think if we manage to do that, then this idea of, well, you've got a striker or two, or a striker and a winger get in the box when the ball goes in, and then you've got this kind of wild card third presence. And holy cow, the wild card third presence is big, pretty quick and strong, and nobody's going to be the one that wants to pick him up as a kind of third choice. I can kind of see that working, but at the moment it's a bit like when managers bring the 3-4 strikers on we need to win, we need to score, we need to win the game. Bring on the strikers, and it's but what about everything needs to happen before that bit? And Patterson being picked and groomed for this role feels a little bit previous, when there's so many steps between here and there. But maybe I can see it working. I'm slightly worried that we'll get disheartened, or he'll get disheartened between now and then getting those bits in place. But as you say, a very good sort of first half performance by and large against a team that are absolutely flying. Burner made a decent sort of chance after a set piece. We lost Westwood 14 minutes in, which is a real shame. But unfortunately, it's the sort of thing that can happen when you are 35 years old. He got caught out by a cross, very nearly lobbed on his line by that same cross, and then in trying to scramble to save it, he seemed to do something. I haven't heard the full news of it, but he seemed to do something to his groin, as far as
it's grade 2 tear. So he's out for weeks. Weeks plural. Well, maybe saying 2 weeks, but I think that's going to be generous. But I don't know. I don't know if this was our conversation where you said, "Oh, he's not." Did you say he's not looking like a long-term solution, or was that someone else who said that?
Well, I didn't say those precise words, so it might
maybe someone else, and I think I maybe guffawed in my head and thought he's not even a solution to the end of the season. I mean, the guy's 36, pushing 37 years old, on the pretty handsome wedge, which he is not justified at all for the last year and whatever. I don't know if we can get some juice out of him, then that's fine. But it just feels like that, and especially with the goalkeeper situation, it's just getting juice out of these very tired oranges.
Yes, yeah. I mean, a real shame. Obviously, it means that certain things that maybe were hoped for can't happen. I mean, one scenario is he sort of showed enough form that potentially somebody would have taken him on loan or something like that. But I think it probably moves us closer to the scenario which, if I'm honest, is the hoped for scenario, that we actually get somebody in that's up to the task in terms of goalkeeper. Although Wildsmith hasn't done anything to let us down in the two games.
Not at all.
4 games that he's played. We just know it's a castle built on sand with our goalkeeping options, because they're as good as the chances they face. And if, like today, you don't really have to make as many saves, they'll probably be all right with that. Sorry, again though, Wildsmith did make an absolute perler of a save late on today. But they're not point winning goalkeepers. They're not game saving goalkeepers.
Do you think any of our goalkeepers in previous form? Do you think a previous Westwood would have done better with the goal we conceded at Swansea?
It's hard to tell. He obviously took it well. There wasn't enough. It's a defensive failure as much as
Yes,
it's not one where you're looking at the goalkeeper. If the goalkeeper's not at fault, really. But that is where a great goalkeeper maybe can make that save, because it wasn't a rocket. It wasn't right in the top corner. It's a fine shot. It's curled, so it's trying to work its way around the goalkeeper, and probably the goalie sees it late. But it's always hard to tell. I think you can see goalkeeping errors when they happen. It's harder to tell when something goes straight in like that, what somebody else might have done. And it's a unique perspective. I always remember Peter Schmeichel picking the goal of the month on Match of the Day, and famously not being asked to do it again because nobody won the competition. Like no member of the public guessed the same as him. But I thought that was quite interesting, because it's like, probably as a goalkeeper, he's got a completely different perspective on the chances than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, it's probably like, oh yeah, that was so good because the goalkeeper couldn't possibly have saved it, or that one looks good, but it's not as good as it. It's not as good as it looks because the goalkeeper should save it. That's a different thing to bear on the same sort of information you're looking at in terms of those goals. Anyway, we're meandering. I mean, I think the first half, as you say, did warm up. Wednesday warmed up into it. It was notable that we weren't playing the ball particularly long. I think somebody used to. So what I did make a note that this just looks so miserable. Like, the pitch was awful. When we had no sound, it looked absolutely freezing. Like, you could see the player's breath, and it just looked. There was a period early on in that first half where I just thought, I do not envy any of these players out on that pitch. I know they're handsomely rewarded for what they do, but trudging around on that quagmire in the freezing cold just did not look tempting at all. But we scored our goal in the 27th minute. It was nicely worked. It was sort of a play on the Pulis corner that we talked about at the weekend. So Reach is at the back again. People charge forward, but this time Reach came round the outside of the sort of clump of players, and Bannon played it short to him, and Reach found the near post. It was a really tidy finish and a lovely goal. Nice to see him off the mark.
What an absolute peach that was. Just completely worked it to perfection. And what a brilliant sweet hit from Reach. And even just clinking in off the post just makes it seem all the more sweeter.
Oh, yes, definitely. Adds that extra little piquancy to proceedings. By and large, we handled them pretty well. We had a sort of scare towards the end where Van Aken kind of looked really surprised by a header, and then Odebajo kind of fell over looking for a foul in the box rather than defending, but we managed to survive that. Second half, they made changes and looked much brighter for those changes. They brought on Casey Palmer, who is he still a Chelsea player, or has he moved on now?
They got him a loan from Bristol, didn't they?
Oh, right. Okay, so he's moved on from, because he is Izzy Brown, but like 3 or 4 years older, isn't he? I think he's Izzy. He's the previous Izzy Brown. He was Izzy Brown before Izzy Brown was Izzy Brown. And they brought on Ayew as well, and the quality of those two players did make a difference for Swansea. We took Rhodes off at the 56th minute, and I thought looked worse for that change. Kachunga came on, and Rhodes was doing a job in kind of stretching the game and leading the line, which Kachunga just doesn't know how to do or isn't able to do. I don't know which it is, but it meant that we started getting sucked further and further back, I thought. And in the 60th minute, we conceded that goal, as we touched on. Pretty much defensive problems. Van Aken kept backing away when he should have gone to the man. Him and Burner were sent for a hot dog by the same sort of shoulder drop from Ayew, and then he curled it into the far post. But I suppose there wasn't too much of note until the very last seconds of the the game there where they had it wasn't a goal disallowed, was it? The whistle was blown ahead of time, but everybody's in the box. It was one of these. Swansea players got very angry. Their managers talked about some sort of personal vendetta that the referee has, but it felt to me like the same sort of thing that happens in, I'd say, every other game every week, where too many people crowd into the box. The ref gets overwhelmed by all the activity, talks to them before the ball comes in, and then as soon as the ball's in the air, blows his whistle. It happens. It's kind of tale as old as time, and that basically was what happened. People sort of said, "Oh, pick the, if you can pick a foul, good luck." You could also say which one was the foul. There's probably 10 fouls in every direction, and we just know in those situations the ref tends to favour the defending team rather than making the kind of bombastic call of a penalty. I don't think it was personal, although anybody that had the misfortune of having to see Cooper's face up close could have a vendetta against him. I don't doubt that, but I don't think this referee was any different to the rest of
Well, I mean, you meet him and you're like, what have I done, Steve? What did I do to you?
He's got a face like a giant middle finger.
Everybody's just having their own kind of like Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of like shrugs and shoulders and protestations.
But it's a point against the team right up there in terms of title contention. We've lost 7 in a row on a Wednesday prior to this, so it's nice to break a run in a positive way. Sheffield Wednesday always seem to be breaking runs of form, but normally it's the negative. You haven't got a point all season. We'll see about that. But yeah, I felt pretty good after the midweek game. Wasn't a classic, but a good performance against a tough team. Fair assessment?
I think that's completely true. Yeah.
So the other thing probably we is worth mentioning news-wise is we also had this mad link to Musa, which came up and died all in the same few hours. But I'd like to think we are looking at the free transfer market just to see what options are there. But that felt like an outlandish one to be linked to.
It did. Did
you see that in time to get excited by it at all, or was it been and gone by the time you were aware of it?
I saw it, and I think the next day I came back, and then it was
poo-pooed. Yes.
We're definitely going to get like a nice, expensive signing for Pulis. I feel that historically we're going to get someone of some weighty credentials. Hopefully, they're someone who can deliver on them, because we can't really afford to have otherwise. But were there also kind of tentative loose links to, I know, Dwight Gale? Was that someone else mentioned?
And Green still seems to be kind of rattling around as Andre Green still seems to be rattling around as a rumour.
Interesting.
Which we would have more of a place for him now because we are playing with wingers. So it was weird to be linked to him under Monk, because we just, unless he could figure out how to play wing back, we just didn't have a place in the squad for him.
Yeah, and we could definitely do with at least another winger. So I mean, I think that would be quite a shrewd little acquisition if we went down that path. But who knows? I don't know. There's this whole thing about I think we've talked about this before, like players not playing. So you think, you buy them. It's going to take them ages to get up to speed. And then Aidan Flint played like 4 or 5 games before obviously picking up a huge hamstring and hammy injury. But I don't know. That kind of went against everything we've kind of been told. I don't know. And Luongo did the full 90 minutes today. But anyway, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. The thing I want to mention quickly as well, I know we brought it up beforehand, just we missed the incident of Callum Patterson having his Todger felt by Donald Fisher at Preston. I don't want to make too many jokes about this, even though there's a little bit of inherently funny. I think he dealt with it incredibly well. The thing I want to say is I think the FA have severely poo-pooed the bed with the 3-match ban, because essentially it is sexual assault on a football pitch. And during these times, I'm really surprised that they only did a 3-match ban. I'd hate to say this, but I genuinely think if this was at the highest level, we'd have a lot more media talk about this, and there'd probably a lot more pressure on the FA to
absolutely
give a longer ban.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was pretty shocking to see, and times have changed. I know there's the clip of Vinnie Jones doing whatever he did to Gaza, but yeah, you'd like to think we're in there's so much more scrutiny, there's so many more cameras. The idea you think you could get away with something like that is pretty crazy.
It's exceptionally naive, really.
Yeah. But then he I think he'd done it to somebody else previously.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like Luis Suarez. At least he's not acting out in quite the same way as Luis Suarez, because that really could get messy.
Exactly. Okay.
There was an excellent clip of Preston played Blackburn and a Blackburn player.
Lewis Holtby.
There we go.
Grabbed his nuts in a cheeky
that
protestation.
That was good.
It was.
Because that is a way of saying we all know you're a twat, basically.
Oh, that's exactly what it says.
Let's get on to the game this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of changes, Harris came straight back in at the expense of Odebajo, which felt a little bit harsh on Moses. I think Moses has actually been one of the standout players in the last couple of games, but obviously Harris is very good. It's his natural position, and it makes sense to change. It just felt a bit strange for Odebajo to be the one that missed out.
I guess the environment now with 5 substitutions is though that we can afford to, just bring on somebody for a change of legs on the wing quite cheaply.
Yeah, so
I don't think that there's a big, huge trade-off. It's nice to see him back. I get that point, though. I quite like Odebajo, but I think I'd much rather have Harris for the threat of any kind of end product, from the wing, which I just get so...
Maybe more about that later.
So little confidence. The thing I was going to say was about Harris was I'm wondering with this, we were talking last week about, Pulis being a man who gives players very simple kind of directions. So I think that could do really well for Harris. I don't think he's a player who overthinks things, but sometimes I think he's on the border of overthinking things a little bit,
It's hard not to make some comparisons to JJ, isn't it, with him? Because just in terms of how quick he is and how skillful he is with the ball at his feet, he's always going to cause people problems. It's just what happens at the end of that's the question. And like JJ, it's very hit and miss. I think, unlike JJ, he's much more miss than hit. And if we could get, in terms of just percentages, he's going to get chances. He's going to be able to cut in. He's going to be able to get to the byline. He's always going to get chances to put the ball into the box or have shots. But if you can make a small modicum of difference to how effective he is when he's in those areas, that will make a huge difference to him and us. So yeah, I can definitely see the potential there to sort of grow on. And maybe a simplified approach is the way to do it. Mm-hmm. Having less things, less options available to him might actually mean that the ones he picks are the right ones for the right situation more often. Mm-hmm. We saw Shaw come in for Rhodes. We'd heard in the conference that Shaw had impressed.
Interesting. I was really surprised to see him starting. I didn't hear the same thing about that you did, that he's impressed in training. I think the thing is, it's a two-sided thing, I want to say. I'm glad that managers have seen promise in an academy player, 2 managers now, Gary Monk and Pulis, to certain kind of degrees, just from what little we've seen, and decided to pick him in the starting 11. And I'm glad about that. But Adeli Bashuru must be pissed. I must say.
He doesn't seem to be anywhere to be seen.
A little bit staggered why he's kind of missing out so often. Do you get... I'm getting a real feel right now, which may not be the most glowing kind of reference and comparison that we can bring into the equation. I'm remembering like the 4-5-1 under Irvin and thinking about Tom Sawers. Do you remember Tom Sawers?
Oh, yeah.
No, okay, so I thought Tom Sawers was a player who was this kind of like bulking athlete, had a bit of spryness, had a bit of pace to him, bit of a skill set, that engine and drive to kind of kick on the ball from centre mid. So I'm thinking and feeling very similar things with Shaw. I don't think Tom Saw's was quite as bad as what everyone thought he was. I think we definitely had some highlights. I think we can probably remember some more lowlights than we can remember highlights, but wasn't a bad player. But it makes me feel about that. It makes me feel like a very solid spine with someone who can kind of spurt forward.
Yeah, I think in particular, Pulis was impressed with how Shaw had done after coming on midweek. So he certainly put himself about, and he put in a really good. I was quite annoyed at the Swansea player for rolling around and making such a fuss, but there was a moment where Shaw kind of intercepted. He got his foot in between the player and the ball on the kind of halfway line, and it was a really good. It looked like a really good intervention that he'd made, and the Swansea player kind of rolled around and pointed to a bit of his calf and stuff, and you watched it on the replay, and it didn't look like he got caught at all. I wonder if he's just got a scar, the Swansea player, and he's like, I'll make use of this. I've got one go per to show off this little scar of mine.
I've got a question for you here, Rich. So, Liam Shaw, is he a showway or a growway?
He's a big lad. I think it's all on display, I've got to say.
But will he, kick on? Because I'm wondering about just as a very kind of slightly comical kind of allegory here. You play like Pro Evolution Soccer and games like this, and
Yes.
you bring in a youngster, and you basically play them for the entire season. And basically, if we follow the same route with Liam Shaw, by the end of 2022, he's gonna be the next Iniesta, surely.
Yes, I think he's more in that he's more of a Koke than an Iniesta, I think.
Sure.
I wonder if Pulis. We talked about when he came in. You may have noticed I've still not settled on a way of saying the manager's name, but Pulis. Just go all around the houses. But we talked about him liking two active defensive midfielders, and obviously Luongo. He's action mass. He's the man for action. But I wonder if he sees in Shaw the next best thing within the current squad, because he's big. He does put in tackles. He's pretty strong for his age. He doesn't look like a kid. The way he holds himself, and I think Deli Bashiru's got a lot to offer, and hopefully we get a chance to see it. I mean, it would be a real shame if he just sort of disappears at this stage. But it's he's bringing a different sort of set of skills to the table. I think Shaw is. And go on.
The thing I liked about FDB, and maybe it's more to say about, maybe it kind of weirdly kind of suited some of the, not the best moments of Monk, but kind of the Monk characteristics. Like he kind of breaks forward with a very languid pace, doesn't he?
Yeah.
FDB.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of frustrates someone like Pulis? Like, do you think he wants someone who's a lot more kind of attacking and direct and kind of really gets at those positions?
There's a chance of that, I think. He's definitely one of these players, a bit like a kind of Sibon or a Berbatov or his stated hero, Yaya Toure. His demeanour and body language will never do him any favours. Like, even when he's working hard, it's going to look like he's taking his sweet ass time about it. He's just got that kind of unhurried demeanour about him, doesn't he? So maybe. As I say, I think you look at that midfield and they're short. We've had a short midfield for a long time. I can see some of the things that Shaw is maybe bringing to the table for him. Although, well, we'll get on to. He was sacrificed at half time, so I don't know whether it's another occasion of somebody looking good off the bench and then not quite doing it when they get their start. But interesting. I mean, it's nice to know there's a route in for youngsters if they fit that, if their face is fit and they're able to play the part. So it would be nice to have a kind of those possibilities of first team bows for players. In terms of how we set up, Patterson. So I think nominally it's kind of 4-5-1, but we were trying where possible for Patterson to drop deeper in kind of a false nine, and then get Harris and Reach, running behind him. Getting into that space behind him. But I don't know how effective it was particularly, but that felt like the kind of idea. And we're back again in this space of trying to get Bannon further forward, trying to get him to influence the game in the right places. And I think he had moments to do that today. I don't know that this was his best performance again, but we can sort of talk about that. I've not made huge amounts of notes. This was not a thriller, folks. This was a pretty.
No, it was not the thriller in Manila.
No, this was the drizzle, some 300 miles from Brizzle. It was dour. I think we looked like we were happy to get a draw. Do
you think it was? I think it was the vanilla in Manila.
vanilla, yeah. I thought we looked happy to settle for a draw, and I think we got warned for time wasting at various points. But I think equally Stoke looked pretty comfortable with a draw. Yeah. And when both teams are in that position, I wonder, if we've had lots of rule changes, there should maybe be a thing where we get to an hour mark in a game like this and you kind of go, do you know what? You're clearly happy with the draw. We're clearly happy with the draw. Should we just shake hands and go home?
Yes.
Knock off early.
Exactly.
Because
we'll both just knock over our kings in unison,
Again, I think it speaks highly to the fact how quickly Pulis has managed to get us organised. This is a Stoke team with, granted, no Fletcher, which I was pleased about. I thought Fletcher really might well have gone against our defence. But no Fletcher. We saw off the immediate replacement for Fletcher fairly early doors, and that meant some came on. But they're all much of a muchness. I mean, those three players are all pretty much the same guy to varying degrees of quality.
Well, yeah, I was going to say just giving a little there, because varying degrees of quality is a strong degree there.
Yes.
I think Lee Gregory is much a downgrade on Stephen Fletcher.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think even further, Sam Vokes these days, I think, is even further down from Lee Gregory, from what I understand.
Yes. Still 31 years old is Sam Vokes. He's still plugging away. Seems like he's been around forever.
I think that's because he has.
Yeah, and he's also such an archetype, isn't he? I think that's the other thing. Like, he's a style of footballer come to life, and he's basically Sean Dyche's centre forward choice made flesh. What Sean Dyche goes to bed on Christmas Eve, hoping he'll find in his stocking. It's a prime Sam Vokes. In terms of chances, Harris looked pretty bright. He had his fullback on toast. That meant that he had opportunities to put the ball in the box. It meant he had opportunities to cut inside and have efforts on goal. I thought 16 minutes in, he had that sort of low drive that looked troubling. It was one of those where the keeper was sort of leaving it, and then at the last second thought, actually, this might sneak in a better dive. But when you hear statistics like in 16 games at Hillsborough, we've had just 6 goals from Sheffield Wednesday. It's another game in a what is now becoming a kind of litany of a nice long epic of pretty boring Hillsborough games.
Sure. It's a game of Russian roulette where there's 24 chambers and 1 bullet in there, and we keep just rolling the barrel and clicking away, empty.
To kind of, but we've touched on Irvine. I think the other comparison, to level things up, in the interest of balance. We're as balanced as the BBC here. In the interest of balance, the other comparison is Stuart Gray, in terms of Stuart Gray was a guy that had a pretty poor squad, which this is starting to look like it's a poor squad. We thought they were underperforming under Monk. It just turns out they're not that good. But Stuart Gray managed to make us a pretty effective unit. Everybody's first job was defence, and that was good. It made us pretty effective as an away team, but it did result in a pretty dour time at Hillsborough, because that's when you're expected to be on the front foot. You're expected to sort of force the game and make things happen.
Yeah.
And when your whole kind of ethos is safety first, it just doesn't. It leads to performances a bit like today's, where we were good and solid, but we didn't have a shot on target. We didn't. Not to say we didn't have effort. So Burner had an effort, Harris had an effort in that first half.
I really like that free kick with a nice little touch off from Patterson to Burner to wang it off a Stoke player.
Yes,
And that was the corner from Baz, and then I think Harris, that way he had cracked it well, but it was blocked. Right, that's a chance we talked about. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Anything else from the first half for you?
22 minutes in, I remarked, I'm recalling on the highlights so far, which were basically Shaw tumbling over Collins in the box, Burner landing on Gregory like a cartoon grand piano. Nice to see us kicking lumps out of Stoke players. There was a spot of head tennis between us at the 24th minute. Now, I'm going to say that was some head tennis we would have conceded under Monk previously.
Yeah.
The comfort of football with none of those pesky highs. That's this football match. Burner just becoming an assassin on the 27th minute as he leaps through Tyrese Campbell's head. The joy behind giving away free kicks. Just as a general kind of overall patch, there's a couple of things here. I'm personally tempted to do a Taylor Swift "You Belong to Me" video to Fox Morgan. Look, Foxy, there's no crowd here, so there's no boo boys. And in brackets, won't tell them this, they've all migrated to social media. Weird to see Danny Bart for Stoke. I've noticed I said a high-end ex-Wednesday retirement home here. As I said, so, this is the interesting thing. Looking at the Stoke team, I think there's some interesting comparisons I might just do across here, just from some notes later. First of all, it's disgusting what you can do with some parachute payments towards building a squad. Like, you just look around and it's just a kind of a Avengers kind of like squad of competent championship players, really. And, I had that moment where it just seemed really strange in comparison, which was, that free kick just before the end of the first half where McLean just ballooned it into the cop.
Yes.
It looked really strange because they had the wall we put together, and it was Shaw, Reach, Burner, and Jos van Aken in one shot all together in the wall. It just really brought to light just how cobbled together this entire team is.
Yes, yeah. I think we had that midweek as well. That's parachute payments, isn't it? Having the quality of Ayew and Casey Palmer to bring off the bench is a pretty swaggy thing to be able to do.
It is indeed. The thing I want to say, I didn't make a note of this, but it was something I thought of, that for all their positives, I feel that basically if Stoke don't go up within the next 2 seasons, if you fast forward 2 seasons, they will be exactly like Wednesday.
Yes.
They will just have basically spent all their money. They'll be kind of in dire straits, and you'll have players like, well, I don't know if I think at that point Stephen Fletcher's contract would have expired, but they've got a lot of old players.
It's the same model as well, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Established championship quality players. It's buying the best, signing the best, or buying the best of the kind of 28 plus market, giving them a longer contract than they probably would get elsewhere, and hoping that you can sort of nudge yourself over the line in terms of promotion, then do a big rebuild with the money. But
the average age that I'm finding out on transfer marks for the Stoke team is 27.3, which I think really marks kind of out. There's a lot of, you've got James McLean, you've got Danny Bart, they've got Chris Brunt, they've got John Obi Mikel, there's a lot of aging players. Stephen Fletcher. I don't really know outside of, I think Collins is a youngster. They brought in James Brown, who I learned from the commentary was released by Wednesday at 14. I didn't know that about.
Oh, right. Okay.
Jacob Brown, the former Barnsley player who's gone to Stoke City.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
But it's weird playing at Stoke. It feels very much like we're playing a Wednesday team of like 3-4 seasons ago, really. but
Yeah.
slightly better in a few areas, maybe not quite. I don't feel they've got quite enough quality that we did in previous years.
I think they don't have the embarrassment of riches up top that we had during our
No, not at all.
Carlos's season. Because I had it was a misfortune because obviously it's sad at the end, but seeing the playoff final again, everything's really good until the match kind of gets going because it's such a glorious day, and that Wednesday kit just looked fantastic in HD on Sky, and all the fans at Wembley. But like, yeah, Hooper and Forestieri and just lots of good options throughout the pitch. They don't seem to have that, I don't think. Although they did have, there's some talents that remained on the bench today because they got Tom Ince, who, to be honest, I'm never quite convinced by, but he's always around good quality teams and he's moved for an awful lot of money during his career.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, interesting. I do think, yeah, like you say, we're probably a picture of tomorrow for them in many ways. Anything else from the first half?
No, I think that's kind of it. Was there anything else? No, there really wasn't.
So I think an interesting move. At halftime we made the change of Rhodes on for Shaw.
Did you see that coming at all? Or?
I didn't, but I think that was the one like nod towards we might try and win this game. We're trying to be a bit more attacking. I didn't think Shaw had let himself down at all, but it felt like more of a let's ask Rhodes to do the same thing he did midweek again and see if we can get ourselves further up the pitch as a result. Didn't quite work. I thought, well, Stokes probably their best period of the game was the restart till about the hour mark. Rhodes had a glimmer of a chance on the break. Bannon sort of pumped a ball over the top and Rhodes held off one of the defenders really well, but unfortunately Bart was swept up really well. Harris had his man on toast. We talked about, it was interesting. I stepped away from I did the legitimate iFollow and handed my £10 to the club. I saw the social media warnings, but I did a grotty stream at halftime to get some life admin out of the way, and it was so that meant I got to hear some of the Stoke commentary, and they were really praising Collins to the hilt. He's come in and done so well. Oh, he's had such a good game. And I just thought Harris, anytime he got to get one-on-one with him, he took him to the cleaners. I just thought Harris didn't do anything with the ball when he got there.
No, that was a big disappointment.
The worst, I think, of all of them was, well, he did two in a row. He did one where he absolutely boomed it with his left foot over everybody. Like it must have been 7 or 8 feet in the air, maybe 9 feet in the air, but while it went over the top of the goal and almost went out the other side. And then after that, it's like he sort of second guessed himself and he went to he beat the man again. He beat Collins again and went to pull back, come back on himself. And when he went to control it with his left foot, he just kicked it straight out of play. That was a pretty low moment in his game. But he looked bright all game. He never stopped running. You just wish there was something, there was some thought behind what he did. It all feels rushed, and it's composure, I think, as much as anything. But as you say, if maybe a bit of coaching to simplify things down, maybe we'll see some more results from him. There was a couple of moments where Bannon really had a chance to make things happen. This is sort of, it was probably started around the 76th minute. We had this little period of keeping the ball around their box. But twice Bannon was the person that had possession in key areas, key moments, and didn't produce the quality that was needed. So I'm talking about particularly the moment where sort of Patterson and Harris were out on the left wing, and Bannon was just inside of them, and Patterson started making a move into the box, and Bannon sort of chipped it 6-7 feet in front of him, giving him absolutely no chance to get it. Then the ball was cleared and ended up back to Bannon again in a crossing position, and he crossed too early so we didn't have a chance to get people in the box, and it was just a crap cross. And in that moment, it's like, what if you'd got nailed the quality in one of those two moments that happened back to back? We probably could have been in on goal and had a chance. I think, again, that's the frustration with today's game and maybe the whole season. You need composure and guile in those little moments to make half chances into chances. And that's where everything falls down for us. The hard work is there. The intent is there. But it's those moments where, like, for good players, time slows down and they see the picture. We're not doing that enough, whether it's through lack of quality or I don't know what the problem is with Bannon, but so many times the ball is falling to him in key moments. We're getting that free kick in the 92nd minute. We're getting the corner at the end of the game. The ball drops to him outside the box, and he's not doing what he's there to do at the points where it matters the most. Hopefully Brown can come, get fit and take some of the pressure off him. But it just feels like everything's weighing heavy on his shoulders at the moment, Bannon. We had the weird thing. So Adebayo came on for Harris, as you say, sort of swapping legs for legs, which is a good decision, fair enough. And then we brought on Izzy Brown for Jordan Rhodes.
And finally, we got something enjoyable to watch, and that was really just watching Rhodes coming off the pitch, looking incredibly pissed off at proceedings. That was quite enjoyable.
Baffling, really.
It was. He looked really cheesed off with that one. So from the off, you would think it was a 4-5-1 with Patterson actually being played up top, right?
Yeah.
From the start, you'd probably say that more so. Because you've dropped Rhodes, you've brought Shaw in, and you've kind of just switched Shaw and Rhodes, effectively.
Yeah.
So Rhodes comes on, and then I'm guessing, unless we go 4-4-2, we probably do the same kind of mentality.
Yeah, we're asking him to stretch the game, keep the defenders honest, and give us space to work the ball, that stop them contracting the space. Yeah.
And then effectively, he goes off and Patterson goes up there and Brown goes into the middle, I'm guessing. It's difficult to kind of get your head around as a change. But I'm also weirdly kind of happy with it because it's not, it's not the typical manager of let's just chuck all the strikers on.
Yeah.
Not that we have many other strikers to chuck on anymore. But...
No, that's a good point, isn't it? It's having enough strength in your convictions and enough strength of personality to not worry that people are going to go, we need a goal and you're taking off a striker, which is the simplistic thing that people do all the time, and it ruins shape. It ruins ruins good positions in games. So yeah.
And you also have the freedom to be like, you have the freedom to make changes like that because you're not being criticized vocally in the stands by it, right?
That helps.
It does help a little. I don't know. Yeah, it was still strange though to see a substitution come on and then come off. And I thought Rhodes was okay. It wasn't like, oh God, he's terrible, get him off.
No.
I mean, I could probably say, hey, this isn't working, but it's a ballsy move to take off a substitute.
It is, and I suppose the thing is, you look at it and you go, who else? If you've made that change at halftime and it's not had the impact you want, you don't want to take anybody else off, I don't think. Patterson is doing the job that he's there to do. He's done that first half, second half. Bannon's doing the job. Luongo's doing the job. So the person to change, weirdly, is Rhodes. It just is it's not a normal decision to make. And I can absolutely see why Jordan Rhodes was ticked off, having been brought on at halftime and then taken off 30 minutes later or whatever it was. And then Brown, his first thing he does in the game is hit a pretty average free kick that made its way back to him. And then he pooed his pants and gave possession to Stoke.
Yes, I know. I mean, we had that midweek. We had a real moment of quality from Bannon, but it's kind of like when everyone else isn't playing so well, we really look to Bannon and Brown now, if Brown is on the pitch and if Brown is playing, to deliver some quality. So it's just even more painful when you get such a weak, terrible free kick and then give away possession to the point where I think it led to Luongo having to do a professional foul and pick up a yellow, right?
It was a really good professional foul. I would have been absolutely fuming if it had been done to us. worth the yellow and more, because they really had 3 or 4 players breaking at pace on us, so it was good forthright thinking and action from Action Mass. We then, the last little dribs and drabs of the game, we would just seem to be just giving Stoke opportunities to ruin our weekend. We had the stupid foul from Lees where we went through the back of someone. That was a good free kick they produced there, and Vokes had his effort on target, which Wildsmith saved really well with his foot, channeling peak David De Gea, not current David De Gea, with his save with his feet. And then the 95th minute, I put Wednesday buttered up their bunghole and asked for Stockton to take the game away. Thankfully, Campbell produced a terrible free kick, but it was a scruffed cross, a scruffed clearance, and then Burner cleared it straight into Bannon's midriff, and then Lees scuffed another clearance, and Burner then went and made the foul. And it just felt like this is the last kick of the game, and he's gonna pop it in the top corner. But
he blew it into the stands.
He did. It was an awful free kick. Dreadful.
Oh.
So there you go. I mean, I'd sort of put a rough stuff, but put another point gained.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
As my closing thought.
I've got a lot of notes. So.
Go for it.
I'm going to go through this chronologically. It's going to be a long one, folks. So strap in. 48-minute. Wildsmith showing the destruction of Boredom as he palms a shot going wide out for a corner, and then from the corner concedes another corner by flapping at it. Flappy Turd, the new game designed by Wednesday's Academy keepers, coming soon to iOS and Android. Julian Burner, according to Powell Walker, the commentator. One thing I want to say, 52nd minute, it happened then, and I noticed this happened in the first. Like, Lees was not doing well on the end of Patterson's throw set piece.
No.
He's not very adequate at the attacking kind of headers. But he just seems to concede fouls every time.
Yes. Well, the thing is, with that team on the pitch, the only person who's got the build to win a header from one of these lofty throw-ins is Callum Patterson. And
he's the one taking it.
And as quick and as strong as he is, getting on the end of his own throw-in would be a feat surprising even for him.
Maybe he should just throw it directly, probably at like a 80-degree angle into the air. So it just loops up really high, and then he just runs full pelt. And by the time he's there, he's probably got a good second to set himself.
And really determinedly, keep his eye on the ball so that the ref can't give a foul against him for anybody that gets in the way.
Exactly.
I just was keeping my eye on the ball. Didn't look at anybody else. I'd love to see that. That would be really good. Just ploughing through people.
53rd minute, I want to say Bannon ruined a really promising break by firing into the stands. That really teed me up.
Yeah.
That was just, it's not the time. It's not the time to try and put your foot through it. Really not. 54 minute, I think they had like a really promising cross for Stoke, and it was kind of headed back across. And Walker was saying that like Vokes couldn't get on target, but actually from the highlights, a lot of kudos here. Really great defensive header from 30th birthday boy Tom Lees.
Ah, there we go.
He actually got there before Sam Vokes.
That's good.
55 minutes. There's a throw-in with some kerfuffle over it. Reminds me that we need fans in the stadium, so I don't have to hear coaching staff sound like chimps in the zoo. It's like the monolith moment from 2001. I'm getting really stressed out by some of the hooping and hollering that's just grunted back and forth between people. I don't know what's going on. Pulis will really make Hillsborough a cauldron this season. A spotless, well-scoured cauldron, not a faint whiff of being full of butternut squash soup. Pulis had a proper hat this week. That's something to talk about.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they finally, I think, because basically people said in social media, you've taken this Adidas hat and you've sewed a Wednesday patch over it. Why don't you just go to the club shop and get one of the caps? For God's sake.
Oh, dear.
One highlight really late on was that Joost van Aken did a really great bit. Actually, he went to tackle Campbell, and you thought, oh, he's going to tackle him and put it out for a throw-in defensively. And he managed to both do Campbell and nick the ball and keep it in. That was fantastic.
Yes.
And 74th minute again, want to kind of have a go at Bannon. We had possession and Powell was down. So Bannon played it out, and I'm like, don't do that. Just keep playing.
Didn't they officially make that the rule? So does it just get ignored by players now?
Well,
they made it the rule that you play on.
I don't know. And he wasn't hurt at all. He just had a little kerfuffle, had a little rub, from the physio, and he was fine. Got the magic sponge out. Oh, my final note, Rich, I think sums up the whole ordeal. Full-blooded, but nobody could nurture a semi.
Hey. Yeah. It's looking at the squad, looking at the predicament, looking at where we're at, and almost the commentary. So I had the radio, I had the Sheffield Wednesday own commentators for most of the game, and there's almost an attitude creeping in of, oh, we'll make some signings in January and then that'll fix things, but we can't afford to just skip this bit between here and there. There's a huge chunk of the season between now and January, so we need to do what we can. I hope things will be. I hope things will be better with Windass in the mix. I think we can already see, having been promised under Lahukai and Monk a solid base to build from. We can actually see that. I'm pretty impressed how quickly that's been put in place. The shape and the solidity of this team, home and away. We've got two different formations that are both pretty formidable at this stage. That's happened very quickly in the scheme of things, particularly considering it's mid-season. But we need those flashes. We need those moments of magic. We're going to rely on players pulling rabbits out of hats at this point in time. We haven't built that middle stage where things to make chances happen on a consistent basis. So until that happens, we'll need people like Windass, like Harris, and like Izzy Brown. I'd like to put Bannon in that group, but I just, at the moment, he's getting the opportunities to make those things happen and not doing it. I'd sort of overlooked the one where he took that shot when there were much better options available. But yeah, he's not, his decision making and his execution is just not where it needs to be at this point in time. And if he was pulling 7.5s and 8s out of his backside performance wise, we actually might have picked up 3 points in the last couple of games, to be honest. I don't want to lay it all on his. We can't expect somebody to make things happen out of thin air all the time. That's how you end up in bad ruts of form. But yeah, the fact of the matter is he's had those opportunities, those half chances, those moments to make things happen and just not produced at this stage. And hopefully it comes back. Hopefully he sort of recaptures that, because I think there's been times where he's been much more effective than he is now. Should we do some player ratings to round things off?
Oh, let's do that. That sounds divine.
Divine. Top 40 Joe Wildsmith.
He was fine. Let's give him a 6.5.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe a 7. That save at the end was pretty good with his left foot.
I didn't agree with you on that one. I'm going to be honest. Okay. I was like, it was fine. It was fine. It was okay.
It's the sort of moment I'm just used to conceding in. Maybe the save itself was not that good, but the not conceding in that moment, because handing a free kick to the opposition in a plumb position in the 92nd minute, you're just like, here we go.
Yeah.
I've read this one before. I know how it finishes. I'm not going to read the last chapter. No, I think let's stick with 6.5. Let's not get too carried away. Liam Palmer.
He was all right. I can't remember much he did. I'm going to be honest.
No,
6?
He was a bit anonymous today. Maybe as a result of having Harris in front of him, who, for some of the game, most of the game, I don't know. They moved around, didn't they, those two up top? But maybe he was asked to do the defending more. In the 4, he's asked to do more defending than other games, and I think Odebajo helps more than maybe the other two do. Yeah, fair enough. I'm having to remind myself what we said. Was it TJ less or TJ Maxx?
TJ Midi.
TJ Midi. TJ Moore.
TJ Moore. TJ Hughes.
TJ Hughes.
Happy 30th birthday when we're recording this to Thomas Jane Lees. Lee's dog. He was,
for old time's sake, do you want to give him a numerical value, just so we'll need to know where we are on the TJ scale? You see.
Let's go with 6.5.
Fair enough. For an interim period, we'll probably need both. But I'm sure in time the TJ scale will take over. It's just
TJ scale will take off. Yes.
We keep referring back to the old way of doing things. Big cheesy Julian Burner.
I think I'm going to venture for a 7 for Burner. You know, you know what I'm liking about now. One thing I didn't make a comment about during things. He looks like a bit of a warrior these days.
He does, doesn't he?
He's really he's doing a lot of swashbuckling, but he's really going at it. He's very full-blooded at what he's doing.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see him back to where he was. Yeah, 7 I think is fair, and definitely maybe the only choice, but definitely a contender for man of the match today. JVA, Jus van Eycken.
He was good as well. I think I'm going to give him a 7 as well. I think he deserves the same. Maybe not quite as good. I think maybe I'd probably go for the similar thing to you as saying Burner, man of the match contender.
Yeah.
JVA was really good. Big, huge shout out to that moment I mentioned where he did Tyrese Campbell, left him on his body on the side of the pitch, and took the ball and carried on further. However, that annoyingly with that, any momentum was thanks to bloody Nick Powell being down. Is it Nick Powell? Or is it the guy from BBC Watchdog?
Yes.
Don't know. But then, yeah, obviously he was down, so Bannon played out, so he lost all sense of momentum in that moment, which was annoying as hell. But I thought he was decent enough. He's solid enough. He's doing a fairly okay job at left back. You know.
Well, in a way, it's weird. It's weird that he's not been a left back before now. Like, I know he's tall. He's 6'3", I think. So obviously, in some way, you say, okay, that looks like a centre back, but he's not particularly strong. He's not great. I suppose his timing of interceptions not being very good is probably going to hold him back in any defensive position. But he's slightly built and reasonably kind of good on the ball. I just, in some ways, it feels like it's weird that he's not been a left back until now, because he's never felt quite natural at centre back. But anyway, I continue to enjoy this experiment, and I think he's doing a pretty good job all round. Shoei
was fine first half. Some enjoyable rugby tackles, including probably getting away with not conceding a penalty, which is something we probably looked over, about tumbling over Collins in the box. That was quite enjoyable. I remembered nothing else. I can genuinely tell you nothing about a lot of these players today and what they did, especially in the middle of the park.
I don't hold hold who scored scores in particularly high regard. I don't generally think that football works the way that they count it. I don't think that, anyway. But interestingly, the overall performance from Stoke was judged slightly better than ours, and in particular, their standout players were their defenders. So I wonder if they did a good job holding us off, and that's where that comes from. Because Collins got 7.1, Chester's got 7.2, Bart's the weakest at 6.7, and Fox got 7.4. So it's like almost all their good players were their back four. So we didn't get much going, but maybe it was a case of them being effective. I don't know. So did we happen on a score for sure?
6.
Fair enough. Luongo?
6 as well. I don't remember much from him apart from a professional foul.
It's a pretty good professional foul, though.
It was a pretty good professional foul. I mean, this is also midweek where Pulis basically said that Luongo should be nowhere near a pitch right now in terms of his fitness.
Wow, right. Okay. I hadn't heard that.
So, yeah, that was interesting. It's like, oh, so we're playing him anyway. Because that was the thing, was like, again, Deli Bashuru, he's been fit. He's got some minutes. I think he's done quite well, given the opportunities he's had.
But he can't do what Luongo does, or not that we've seen.
No, very few people can. But it makes me feel very strange about selections in the middle of the park right now.
Yeah.
So much so that, like, I don't know who's been our standout performer in midfield outside of Luongo, but Luongo's time really felt thanks to during the time of Gary Monk. We've not really, I think he's been functional. I mean, I'd much rather have Luongo on the pitch being okay than not having Luongo at all. But I'm going to say, like, a star midfield performer for us for this Tony Pulis era, for the 3 games we've seen, has definitely been Patterson.
Yes, I agree with that. I think Luongo, I thought he was pretty good. He seemed to be back to sort of tackling, those lovely crunchy tackles that he likes. He did a couple of those against Swansea. And today he very nearly was involved in a sort of positive. That's the frustrating thing. It's all little, like, glimmers of almost nearly. It's like the the rom-com protagonist that falls in love with every woman that catches his eye. There's all these moments that feel like possible dalliances with the goal. But we just sort of bludgeoned into defenders time and time again and didn't make much of them. And I thought there was a point where Luongo got involved on the near side, and it was sort of Luongo, I think Luongo, Reach and Palmer all together, and it felt like it was just going to break into something good, and the ball there was a clever little ball played in for Luongo, and he burst into the box. But again, it was very well defended. I do think, I mean, that is a pretty excellent defensive partnership, Bart and Chester. There cannot be many more centre back pairings that are much better than those two, just on paper. It just felt like we were coming up against a brick wall every time we got near their box today, and Luongo suffered from that as much as anybody else. Interesting comment about the fitness. We'll have to keep an eye on him, but he played all 90 minutes.
I know. Well, that was the thing. I was surprised because it seemed to be that was the arranged thing for Pelopessi coming on for him at the 60-minute mark for the previous 2 games. So that seemed to be the mentality, and seems to be picked up by the commentary team, I think.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got this on Who Scored as a 4-3-3 as the starting lineup. I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that, but let's go for Bannon next. Either way.
Bannon. 6. Is that fair?
Yeah, probably.
I just feel like maybe somehow giving him less than a 6 because he was disappointing today.
The thing is, he's so present. He does so much. Our expectations are always high for Bannon.
I know.
Because he set the bar so high. And there was that lovely moment towards the end of the game where he sort of burst, but he had a burst of pace to make sure the ball ran out of play. And that was the 89th minute. And I thought, this is your 3rd game in a week, and you've still got the puff to sprint after that ball for like quarter of the pitch. That's impressive stuff. But it's...
But the funny thing is...
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, the funny thing is the stuff that's not wrong related to his fitness, is it?
Exactly. It's not the legs that are letting him down. It's his mind. It's the composure, and we just need him to... Same as Harris. We need him to be like a couple of percentage points better, and it will make such a difference to us in those key clutch moments, to borrow a phrase from American sports. Kadeem Harris?
I think we can go with I think I might go for a 6.5. Like, it's good to see him back. I think, we miss his pace. We miss him as an outlet. A little bit frustrating for his decision making today.
Yeah, fair enough. It's good to have him back.
It really is. Yeah.
Don't go falling on top of a player and getting sent off for some reason that's quite hard to decide. Patterson.
How did Patterson do today? He did all right. Like, he's an incredibly solid pro in a very solid professional team right now. This feels like his He feels like the identity of the team in one player, you know?
Yeah. I think for him, the change round of formation is maybe he's the most unfortunate one, even though Rhodes is the one who's dropped. I think we didn't get to see him build on this new idea of his position, which it felt like at Swansea. It felt like, okay, yeah, I can see what's happening here. I didn't get quite that feel today, but then he probably played in about 6 different roles at various times today. So the fact he couldn't quite get his teeth stuck in, it does make sense on the grand scheme of things. Nothing there to criticise, really. Adam Reach is the last member of the starting lineup.
Do you remember anything Adam Reach did on the pitch today?
Do you remember he scored midweek? I think he was mainly thinking about that.
Okay. Well, there we go. That's fine then.
Yeah, no, he was pretty anonymous today. Struggled to get into the game.
Yeah, I think we can probably give him a 6. I think that's fair.
I wonder if it was a case where if he had... We obviously figured out that Harris could batter Collins for pace and let him have at it, which made sense. But then that does mean Reach is up against Fox, who quite possibly knows all of his tricks.
Yeah.
From training days of yore. So that was maybe a little bit of an unfortunate change for Reach in that. But yeah, he didn't do much. But we also didn't see much from... We know that Fox could be a pretty potent force going forward, you know, a good crosser from deep and things. We didn't see any of that, so maybe Reach was quietly holding back the breach. Jordan Rhodes, how long did he get in the end? He got just less than 40 minutes. Is that right? Yeah.
That makes it sound like we ordered the pizza.
We got 39 minutes, Jordan Rhodes.
God. Did he delivered on being Jordan Rhodes?
Again, he had a glimmer. He had his own little glimmer.
Can you remind me what that was?
Where the Bannon played the ball over the top and he held off Chester.
That was
yeah. Cleared it.
Yes. Do you think he could have done better in that situation?
Yeah, probably. He's a broken husk of a man. He's just getting up in the morning is hard enough for Jordan Rhodes.
I know.
I don't know. I don't remember anything either of the last 2 subs did, but just for completion's sake, Moses Odebajo.
Oh, let's give him a 6. I think it's nice.
He was there.
I like him on the wing now. I like him on the wing either starting or this kind of brief appearance. I think there's positives of both of them. I think that's good.
Yeah. Izzy Brown came on, did a poo, and then went home.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give him a 5.5. That was really, really frustrating. That was literally the only thing he did, and it was terrible.
Yeah. Oh, not a classic, but we got through it, Luke. That's the main thing. We're huddled together, besieged by the EFL and the world at large, and we came out grasping a point in our hands.
In El Lumpico, I think people are now calling it.
So we move on. We've the games come thick and fast at this stage of the season, so we'll have more chances to improve. We get to welcome back Lucas João midweek.
Yes, the high flying Reading.
Lucas João, who scored more goals than Sheffield Wednesday this season.
Yes.
This is a tough little run of games. I think Reading and Norwich both tough opponents. So this will test our mettle in terms of how strong those foundations we're building are.
Mm-hmm.
But fingers crossed. We'll keep eking along. I think we need to pick up some wins. That's the only thing.
That would be really nice. I don't think we can just keep drawing our way to safety. No,
it doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it does not.
Okay, well, I hope you have a good week, Luke, and I hope the folks at home have another fine week in this this desolate wasteland that we live in now. This is the world at large. It's Sheffield Wednesday are a microcosm of the world. That they're always a representation of the world around them, like The Simpsons or the news. Cheerio, Luke.
See you, Rich. Have a good one.